J'avais 14 ans quand j'ai été assassinée.
Tu es la fille Salmon, c'est ça?
Le 6 décembre 1973. Papa.
Elle te manque.
Suzy est entre le ciel et la terre.
Well, the toughest and most difficult to shoot was definitely the in-between, as Susie describes it. And it's not heaven as such, because, you know, heaven exists at the very end of the movie of a golden light, that when the Mr. Harvey's victims come to invite Susie to go with them, if she chooses. But in our mind, the in-between, and it was a very particular direction that we were heading that was created in the script. I mean, most people think visuals come, you know, with the CGI or the design of the film, but for us, everything was driven by the screenplay, and everything is there because of the needs of the script. And the challenge was that the in-between is a psychological, dreamlike state of Susie's subconscious. So everyone would imagine their own in-between based on who they are. And we're dealing with, you know, our character, Susie Salmon, has this, you know, she's now no longer living in her body, and what's surviving is her life force, her energy, which is surviving in a dreamlike environment. And so it's not a physical location. It's not like Paris or London. This isn't the afterlife and we're showing you what it looks like. This is actually Susie's dream, her subconscious. And that's difficult to figure out, you know, how you portray that. And it's why we wanted to capture a lot of the character of Susie. She's an optimistic, she's fiercely intelligent, she's funny, she has so much of her life in front of her, and all of that energy is feeding into her subconscious, which is now the state of reality that she's living in. It allowed us to connect emotionally with where she is. The colours are brighter, there's more life and sort of fun when she's optimistic, and then when she's feeling pressured, and, you know, then the world becomes darker and the colours become gloomier. And then also, you know, one of the things that was interesting to explore was when she has to enter the door of this solitary house, which is sitting alone in the cornfield, and the house is actually the killer. It's not a house; it's Mr. Harvey himself. And going into that door allows Susie to enter his subconscious. So now you have Susie's subconscious blending with that of the killer, and she's seeing images that only he has in his mind, because now she's actually going through that door, she's entered his mind. So that was the approach, and it was like a little puzzle that we laid out on paper in our script, and everything that's in there sort of is there because it supports the story.
Suzy n'aurait jamais suivi un inconnu. C'est forcément quelqu'un qu'elle connaissait.
Mon père avait les pièces, mais il ne pouvait pas reconstituer le puzzle. J'attendais la justice, mais la justice ne vint pas. Mon père sait que je suis là.
Tu es la fille Salmon, c'est ça?
At the point of our story was not to show heaven or show an afterlife that exists as a reality separate to our characters and our story. We didn't want that. You know, we didn't want to treat it, as I said before, we didn't want to treat it as a physical location. We wanted to say that we're now getting into, you know, the subconscious of Susie. But what the difficulty is, of course, is we're dealing with the world of metaphor, and everything that's in there is not a literal representation, it's a metaphor for something else. And what's difficult is balancing that so that the audience can understand what they're seeing, you know, because I'm not available to talk to them, talk to everybody at the beginning of the film with a microphone and explain it. So we're trying to make it simple enough that people can understand, but at the same time not too simple that it falls into cliche. And that's difficult balance. And I don't know if we're entirely successful. I think it depends very much on the audience and how they react. I mean, you know, Susie is murdered just before she goes on her first date. She's been invited by Ray to meet her on Saturday night in the shopping mall by the gazebo, is what he says. There's a gazebo in the shopping mall. And so the gazebo now shows up in her in-between, and it's her security, it's safety, it's her home, it represents the family, and where she came from. And now that's a metaphor, you know, through the fact that it was supposed to be an unfulfilled dream to have this first date in the gazebo. And you know, even when she's lost at the beginning and she's running around the forest, I mean, the forest is a metaphor for being lost, you know, like Little Red Riding Hood. She's trying to get out of the trees, she's confused, she doesn't know whether to go left or right, you know. And then things like the flower, the camellia that blooms in the hand of her father, that's literally the blooming of an idea, the beginning of him getting, you know, she's communicating with her father using the image of a flower flowering to say, Dad, this is the guy. And she's communicating with it's the blooming of the idea of who this killer is. You know, so that it was fun. I mean, that was what was a lot of fun. There was this puzzle of trying to create visual clues to help both Susie and the characters in the film, but also to communicate with the audience as well.